I want to circle back a little bit because something you said about the weight was interesting to me. And it ties into a secondary point. So if you don't mind, I'm going to sort of ask this in a somewhat convoluted way. When you talked about the trying new things and the weight gain that results, that may be just a result of a transient water gain.
Absolutely.
Right? So some transient water retention. Now, I get that for you a very important metric is weight. Where I want to head here, though, is we did some research quite a few years ago now looking at the qualitative lived experience of people on a ketogenic diet. And we thought that we saw, well, we did see, but, you can't really be too equivocal with qualitative research. We identified sort of two behavioral types, the moderator and abstainer. And the moderators at the end of a ketogenic diet trial were people who were sort of saying things like, well, I enjoyed it, but I'd like to start eating a little bit of kumara, maybe some pasta here and there, and I can handle that, not a problem. Behaviorally, psychologically, psycho-emotionally. Whereas there were the other group were the abstainers who were basically saying things like, you know what, if I go back to eating carbs, I'm just going to eat more and more and more.
Right.
And they were using very evocative terms like the sugar demon, the sugar dragon, things like that. So how much of what you're looking at is based purely on those numbers that you're seeing on the scale, and how much is the propensity for those foods to drive you to eat more and more of those foods?
So I've always been keen on exploring the variety of my diet. It was one of the concerns that a lot of critics have always expressed to me. You're going to get bored of it. You're just going to be eating the same thing every day. And so I've always worked really hard to explore any and all options that I find that might, in theory, support or at least not get in the way of achieving what it is that I'm out to achieve. So I would describe myself as someone who, in theory, would like to be able to moderate on some of these things as much as they could, but the end results, as they're steering back at me some days, demonstrate that I just can't. It's not so much an issue of addiction. I wouldn't say I was ever really addicted to food as such, so much as I was compelled by my constant hunger to continually eat.
Yeah, right.
And to just be free of that, to be able to think about food while at the same time not feeling like I should be eating some of that food. There's a separation that exists there now that I never used to have before. I would have to really work to actively distract myself, whether I'm focusing on something at work or whether I'm deep on a quest in a video game or whatever. You get in the zone, right? There is a zone, and you forget about how hungry you are. And I don't have to work so hard to forget about that anymore because I'm not so hungry all the time as I used to be.
Right.
So for me, it wasn't so much about an addiction and escaping that addiction as it was about just finding and preserving that freedom, if you like, from the constant feelings of hunger that I used to be getting for many years.